Moloka'i is a national bestseller written by Alan Brenner. The novel focuses on Rachel Kalama's life after it takes a drastic turn at the age of 7. Being raised in Honolulu with her parents Henry and Dorothy Kalama and her 3 siblings, she never thought that she would be diagnosed with leprosy, a disease that wiped out a large population of Hawaiians in the late 19th and early 20th century. Due to her condition, she is sent to the island of Moloka'i, where she is cared for by the sisters at the bishop's home. While she hated the place in the beginning, causing her to rebel, she grows up and begins to love the place. It becomes her home, and her friends become her ohana. The novel reflects the power of love and the impact of death on a person. We can see how people turn both towards and away from religions of salvation due to the disease, and how leprosy really did tear families apart. Only the strongest bonds enduring. The book is written in a third-person point of view, allowing the readers to see the different characters and what they're thinking. This shows the effect that Rachel had on various characters in the island. Subplots include Uncle Pano and Haleola's relationship, Sister Catherine's religious journey, Leilani's struggle as a transgender woman, and plenty of other people that Rachel meets during her over 50 years on the island. The novel is written in a way that goes through almost all of Rachel's life: childhood, adolescence, middle age, and old age.
Moloka'i takes place from the 1890s to the early 1970s. During this time, a lot of historical events occurred in the background of the novel. In 1891, King Kalakua died of kidney disease, and he was succeeded by his sister, Lilikua Kalani. In 1892 to 1893, the monarchy was overthrown by U.S. businessmen because they were frustrated that Queen Liliuokalani wanted to adopt a new constitution. So Cleveland wanted Congress to restore the Queen as sovereign, but the provincial government refused to step down and declare itself as the Republic of Hawaii. In 1898, President McKinley signed a law so Congress could annex Hawaii. So in 1900, Hawaiian Islands were considered U.S. territory. In 1911 to 1912, Rachel's father, Henry, tells his daughter that in Hawaii's first swimming event, Duke Kahanamoku broke the 100-yard freestyle record and earned the gold medal in Olympic Games. This is one of the events that helped reclaim Hawaiian past because missionaries had put many restraints on Hawaiian traditions. In 1941 to 1943, there was an attack on Pearl Harbor. We see this in the book when Rachel climbed to the highest part of Moloka'i to see the smoke from Pearl Harbor in Honolulu. In 1943 to 1948, Rachel's only child, Ruth, tells her biological mother about the death of her adopted father in Tulu Lake Segregation Center, an internment camp. President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066 in February 1942 as a punishment for the Pearl Harbor bombing and the later declaration of war with Japan. This gave the U.S. military the authority to imprison Japanese Americans and Japanese descendants. These prisoners were sent to Tulu Lake. At the end of World War II, the prisoners were finally released from Tulu Lake without compensation. In addition to political problems, the novel covers one of the most destructive tsunami waves that hit Hawaii on April Fool's Day. It was triggered by a 7.1 level earthquake in the Aleutian Islands off Alaska. This can be seen when some of the tsunami waves hit Moloka'i and the island floods. Those were the main historical events that occurred in the background of Moloka'i.
One praise of the book Moloka'i is by the Washington Post, where it states, "A dazzling historical saga, a rare look at the rich history of a state most Americans think of largely in terms of tourism." Another one, by Jim Fergus, author of 1000 White Women, states, "Moloka'i is a big, generous, compassionate, beautifully rendered epic novel about a largely forgotten, ignored chapter in Hawaiian and American history." One strength of the book Moloka'i is that Alan Brenner makes you feel emotionally attached to his characters. Another strength is in character development when Sister Catherine states, "What kind of God would inflict such a horrible death, a horrible life on children just to test their faith in him?" Meaning that Sister Catherine, who is a nun, is questioning her own faith. One criticism of the book Moloka'i by Alan Brenner is when Goodreads.com says, "For a book that is supposed to take place in the early 1900s, I was completely appalled when the characters said things like, 'Hey, how's it going?'" Another one, also from Goodreads.com, is when the author himself says at the end that this was really a fictionalized biography more than a fictional novel, which just made it poor writing. One weakness of the book Moloka'i is that it is hard to understand the words that are written in Hawaiian. The huddled exiles gazed up, taking in the towering Pali that rose so impossibly high. In this sentence, we do not know what Pali means. We can infer that it means a building from context clues, but it is not explicitly stated what the meaning of the word is. The author Alan Brennert was born in New Jersey in 1954, raised by his mother and father. Brennert moved to California and attended California State University, where he wrote his first novel, and later attended UCLA and studied screenwriting. Brennert always had a passion for Hawaii, which inspired him to write his first novel, Moloka'i, and another titled Honolulu. He first journeyed to Hawaii when he was 24 and instantly fell in love with the place. Brennert was fascinated by the place, the people, and the history of Hawaiian culture, which therefore causes him to romanticize Hawaiian culture. Brennert visited Moloka'i for the first time in 1996, but it wasn't until 3 years later when Brennert began reading about Kalaupapa and how people were taken away from their families, jobs, homes, and sent to the isolated peninsula of Moloka'i. Since Brennert was never present during these historical events, it makes information about the disease in Moloka'i possibly inaccurate. In my opinion, the novel Moloka'i is a great book because Brennert's writing style makes it really easy to be emotionally attached to the characters, and it gives a new perspective on religion. Hey Sophia, what did you think of this book?
I think that it was written so beautifully, and the vivid detail made it feel like I was on the island. The historical events were well incorporated into the novel. Hey Jasmine, what did you think of the book?
I personally thought that Brennert was great in developing each character, and I personally recommend this book because it was an interesting and fun read.
Hey Judith, what did you think of the book?
I really enjoyed this book. However, I only recommend it to more mature readers because of some of the topics that are discussed. I really love the way that it talks about a mostly unknown part of Hawaiian history.
I've been reading about a daughter whose name is Rachel Kalama, and she was shipped to Moloka'i. She had a skin disease called leprosy, and the book is a fictional description of her life. Every page I turn, every word I see shows the suffering of those with leprosy. The place they send those with skin disease, where they're forced to be.
But the book isn't out there at all, it's behind